Right, let's do it.
Hello and welcome to this episode 7 of the Just Discourse Podcast with your host Monotone Max and the man with the sexy name, Matt Delahart.
Monotone Max. Mate, that's a good superhero. I like that.
Mate, I know I've been listening to myself too much and for the first time ever, and I realised, Jesus, I've got one pitch.
Nah, it's good.
very
It's
monotone.
good. It's like you can be the pitch bitch if you want.
It's consistent, you know. I like to be consistent.
Yeah, then you get the gunshot laughter from me over here.
Exactly, yeah. It's a good little trade-off, isn't it?
I was laughing the other day and someone was like, "Is that a woman?" And I was like, "You son of a bitch."
They done you in there.
Yeah, they did. I mean, fair enough. It is pretty. It's pretty shocking if you don't know it's coming.
Well, I'm used to it by now. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll move on from that. Today I know we wanted to speak a bit about sort of more investments and the sort of money side of things and how to ensure that as males in this society, I know that's a swear word these days.
Disgusting.
How we create wealth for ourselves in order to live a life we want, have the things we want in this very materialistic world that we live. But I mean, in terms of various different things, is we discussed it before, is that everybody wants a blueprint, don't they? Everybody wants and before we start, we are not financial advisors. We do not give financial advice.
I have my own accreditation given to me by myself, so yeah, don't worry about it.
There we go. So we only speak from our own experience and things we've done in our lives to hopefully give some kind of guidance or push people onto the right tracks if that's what they're looking for and are interested in. And it's not, as we said, there isn't a blueprint. The most of it is trial and error. That's all we can do, is trial and error mixed with a bit of luck. For example, really when you do these investments, if you've got some money set aside that you've obviously earned from your hard labour, you don't really want to be throwing it away sort of willy-nilly on the hope that because somebody else has told you or somebody's given you this tip or someone said this, that you can throw your money in and you're guaranteed to make money. It's all trial and error, but obviously the more research you do and due diligence, the more you can feel comfortable with putting your money into specific things. And the example I wanted to use is, especially for that, is I've invested in various different things over the years, silver being one of them. Now during COVID, the average gold silver ratio, which is how much silver you can buy, how many ounces of silver you can buy for 1 ounce of gold. The average is about 50 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. Now during COVID, that spiked to I think it was about just below 150. It may even hit 150. So effectively, if you had 150 ounces of silver, you could buy 1 ounce of gold.
Wow.
So to me, that signalled that silver is massively undervalued. And then when you couple that with the fact that there's a massive industrial demand for silver, in terms of making batteries, electric cars, all types of electrical equipment, they use silver. And with the massive increase in demand in the electric car market, shall we say, over the last couple of years, and what is likely to be happening over the next 5 or 10 years. Now, I assumed, because you can only do a certain amount of research, and then you have to sort of jump in, trial and error, and give it a go, that you are comfortable with putting that money in. And in terms of what actually happened there, or what I've seen, is that didn't come to fruition. I thought, I think the gold silver ratio now is down to about 90, something like that. So effectively, if you did have 150 ounces of gold, ounces of silver, you can buy more gold than what was worth before. However, the swing hasn't been as large as I had hoped, to the point where the silver investment that I made hasn't really increased in value, barely, if anything. And this comes back to the fact of trial and error. You know, there isn't a guaranteed way to make money. You just have to put yourself in a few different places in order to see which one works best for you. And if you get lucky, or, you know, I don't like to use the word lucky. There is an element of luck with all of these things, but you've got to give it a go and see how it works for you. See, you know, depending on what type of industry you're in and what it is you're looking for. But the point in the silver thing is, I did quite a lot of research, and all the metrics were signaling to me that, you know, this is a good place to increase the value of my money, or, you know, increase my wealth in terms of putting it into that investment. Now, it's pretty much been stagnant for 5 years. Hasn't really done anything. Now, on the flip side, and this is where I will use the word luck, because this was 100% luck. At the same time, crypto was quite low at the time, but it was becoming, you know, quite a hyped up thing, especially during COVID, when everybody was at home and they were getting paid 80% to sit home and do nothing. There was, you know, massive inflation in pretty much every aspect of investment. So I thought, well, I know nothing about this crypto business, but I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to put a bit of money in there and see how that goes. Now, 100% luck, you know, that went up quite considerably. And again, I still don't know enough about crypto to confidently keep investing into it, because obviously it's very, you know, the swings on crypto are massive. Do you know what I mean? They're not quite down as low as when I initially put it in. But, you know, for example, Bitcoin, that went up from, when I was looking, it was about 11 grand for, you know, one Bitcoin. That went all the way up to 50,000.
Wow.
And now it's down to, I think today it's down to about 24. But it, you know, it went as low as, I think, about 13, 14 again. But then again, it's up to about 24. So
wow,
you've got to be careful, and there, you know, there's an element of timing in that type of crypto market. But for a lot of people, it's probably not the right thing to do. And you got to, with investment, only invest, like gambling, what you can afford to lose. Because if you bet your mortgage on it, and it all goes tits up, then of course you're in the shit, basically.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want.
Well, yeah, the chances are that if you're putting, as you say, if you're putting everything on it, it's not going to turn out right. Whereas if you put a certain amount on it, as you say, if you lose out on it, it's not a big deal. There was a crypto one last year that I was turned on to, which wasn't a Bitcoin one, but it was one that was basically, I can't remember exactly how the model worked, but it's basically something that you did like a task every day, and you basically had to just like watch these adverts like 60 times or something, and doing that generated cryptocurrency. It wasn't Bitcoin, it was, or Ethereum or something else. And this was, you know, it looked brilliant, because on the exchange for it, we put it through a certain converter, and then you could put it through another one, and you go straight into your account from there. So you're like, wow, this is brilliant. I basically I work in quotes for like 15 minutes, and it works out to be like 80 quid a day. So you're like, brilliant, another source of income, fantastic. So unfortunately that one, there was quite a lot of us on it that were using it, and some people were getting money through from it. Unfortunately that one did actually turn out to be a full-on scam.
Like 80% of
like most of them are, and they just,
because it's not regulated, it's too easy for these
very easy to scam. Yeah, so it was just everyone who's in it lost everything they invested into it, including me, including members of my family, close friends, a lot of people. Well, not a lot of people, everyone that went on it lost it all. So yeah, you say it is it's annoying, but I don't think there was anyone in that situation that had banked 100% on it. because again, the returns you would get on it is just like, it's just a nice addition. It's not enough to replace an income. But yeah, it's just to your point. That's just,
you really don't like that mic, do you?
the epitome of luck right there. I like it. It's the standard doesn't like me, I guess. I like the mic. It's the that was entirely down to luck for that one, or ill luck, as the case was.
Well, I try and put this phrase, shall we say, to everything in life, is to make sure you stay positive in these situations. You either win or you learn.
Yes, very true.
Now, it's great when you win, because obviously we all want to win. That's the real goal, is we win every time. However, when it comes back to learning, the real win. Is because you can take that knowledge with you to the next investment or the next anything. As we said, like, most skills are transferable. So if you've learned something, whether it be, look, I took way too much risk on that last one, so the next time I do it, I'm going to mitigate risk in whatever way it might be, either by not investing as much or by spreading it across various different investments. And I've always lived by the mentality is, and Warren Buffett says this, is a lot of people advise to diversify, but I found at first, and this is what Warren Buffett says, is instead of trying to diversify in multiple different things, is find your income or your core way of making money, and then guard that with your life. And put all your eggs in one basket effectively, and then guard that basket with your life. Is because you can only serve one master. If you try and serve two, you fail both. So really, you've got to stick to one thing, become a master at that, and then once you get to an economic level where it's either enough or it's to a point where that is continually perpetuating itself, and then to save or further maintain that wealth, then you can diversify out from there. For example, if it's into gold, which is obviously a great store of value, now property, which isn't the same as it used to be, because of there's so many more taxes and processes you have to go through these days than it was, say, 20 years ago. But it's still, the way inflation is going, it's still a good way to park your money. Now, a lot of people get hung up on making millions out of property, starting from one and keep flipping it over, which can be done. It can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's a lot harder than it used to be. However, most people, or the most financially literate, understand that property, again, is a place to store your money. It's a place to park your money, and everybody lives in the fantasy that the income from the properties is where you're going to make your money. But the main aspect is the capital appreciation. And depending on how you do it, if you do it for a limited company, there's obviously far more tax benefits. Because then, of course, you can remortgage and you can all of the costs are written off against your tax. But the capital growth is really where you're going to make it. Because say you've got a property that's 400 grand, goes up 10%, then of course effectively you've made 40 grand. Also, if you do sell, then you got the capital gains on that. But again, what most people do is they will then, or most investors will do, is they will then remortgage that, take that out, and then put it into another property. Or buy, keep buying and building that way. And then, over a 10 or 20 year period, so I think for properties, it's average, or has been for the last 50 years, that it grows 100% every 10 years. So effectively, the property prices double every 10 years.
Wow.
So, it doesn't happen consistently. It's not, 8% a year. It will be like we found in the last 2 or 3 years. Well, let's say in the previous 8 years, the first 5 years, property didn't really do anything. Stagnant. Stayed pretty relatively similar for 5 years, and then over like a 2-year period, spiked. So it went from, say the average house price was say 350, then in say 18 months to 2-year period, it spiked to about 450, which is quite a considerable amount of growth. Again. Yeah. But you've got to be in it to win it. So you've got to be in it at the time in order to benefit from that. But again, it's the same type of thing as you've got to expect to lose money when you're investing. If you don't, fucking brilliant news. Then, you've done really well. But then again, you're not learning anything. I can't remember who it said is that if you, the greatest tragedy is to win or is to have too much success early on because you think, well, it's always going to be like this.
Yeah.
Then you get cocky, arrogant, you make mistakes.
Yep.
And then you overexert yourself, and that's when the problems occur and everything comes crashing down.
Makes sense to happen from that point because you're not making any mistakes or any issues to learn from in that perspective.
And again, in our society, we're, especially from school age, we're sort of taught and dictated to us that you can't make mistakes. You do a test, you get it wrong, you fail. Whereas it's the opposite in life. Is
That's a good point.
So at school, what's it? You learn what you need to, then you do the test. Whereas it's on the flip side in real life, is it? You
get tested.
You do the test, whatever that scenario might be, and then you learn from that test.
Yeah.
And you don't.
That's a really interesting point.
And it's the fear of failure that is projected onto us from like the young schooling age, which I can imagine stunts most people's either confidence or ambition to grow, because they think, oh well, I've been programmed that if I get this wrong, then I fail and I'm a failure.
That's a very good point. That's really fascinating. That is the reverse dichotomy that way. Because imagine being given like, tell me everything about Isaac Newton. You're like, I don't fucking know. Like, cool, right, now we're going to learn about it. You're like, oh, okay. I think you'd actually be more motivated to learn about something after your ignorance has been revealed or something. That's very interesting. Because you're absolutely right, because with real world applications, there's two options. You either sink or you swim. So you either sink and never touch it again, or you swim and you learn from your mistakes and you don't drown next time. Yeah. Fascinating.
And there's that element of pressure that I think pushes you forward. Because especially when you're looking for certain things, if it's an investment and stuff like that, is unless let's be realistic, unless you're part of an investment bank or you're right at the start of an industry leading business or a new industry and stuff like that, people like you and I, Joe Blogs, it's unlikely that we're gonna stumble across the thing that's going to make us a millionaire overnight. There was quite a lot of people with the early cryptocurrencies and stuff like that 100x their money. There's that famous story of the guy that bought, I think it was like, he obviously had a bit of wealth at first, but he bought like £1 million worth of Bitcoin for £1. Now, well, he's a multi-billionaire now because it's up at 24,000. Yeah. You think, well, that's absolutely mental growth, but you're only going to get that at the start of a new industry, and it's very, I think it's like probably once or maybe twice a lifetime that we have an emerging industry like that. And again, unless you're clued up on it, which the majority of us are not, it's very difficult to get there. So really, you've got to, as I said, find your basket, wherever it is, whatever industry it is, or whatever skills you have, and apply those in order to generate cash flow, and then you can start thinking about other investments on the side.
Yeah, there was a phrase I heard, which was that you can do anything in life, you can't do everything.
Not all at once.
Not all at once.
And you can't have everything all at once.
Well, that makes sense as well. You don't want to be. You want to be. whatever venture you're doing, whether it were to be investing in a property, investing in something, or you're, creating music and you're wanting to make money from it. There's no point in trying to touch peripherally everything you could possibly think of.
Mm-hmm.
You want to find one avenue, focus everything on it. So then you either realize, okay, this isn't going to work, and I'll move to something else, or you make money from that, and then you make more money from that until you get a consistent amount from that, and then you can spread out from there.
Exactly.
Because there's no point in wasting your time, because you will waste years doing this
Mm-hmm.
if you're jumping from one thing to the other, because the nature of the beast in any case is that time is your friend. Yeah. Time will make you the money.
When you're young.
Well, and also, at any point in any respect, if it's something that you are going to be, that's going to give you yields or you're going to make money from, time is what's going to make you the money. But you have to stay with something consistently over time to make money out of it.
And especially, when you're younger, you can afford to take more risks. So you can afford to make more mistakes. And that's another reason why you'll find the older generation, they want something that's consistent and safe, which you tend to find in, as you say, the older generation, they'll start diversifying into various different things, because when you have like a market drop or something like that, then they are diversified across a few things. So if they lose 20% in their, say, property portfolio, you tend to have one of the other assets that they may own, because they're diversified, will increase. So it mitigates or offsets that loss. And what you don't want to be, unless it's a specific cash flow business, you don't want to be too. Say it's like property. If you invest everything into property, everything you have, and the whole market crashes 50%, then you are in trouble. Mm-hmm. However, when you're young, you can potentially afford that risk. You've got the energy, you've got more time, you've got more ability to learn knowledge in order to avoid that from happening. So it's worth it when you're younger to take that risk. But as you say, when you get older and you've potentially made or created some wealth for yourself, the last thing you want to do is lose it, because you could have wasted the last 20, 30, 40 years of your life. And especially if you've got children and all that type of stuff, when you've got to make sure you've got a roof over their head. Whereas, at our age, or not necessarily our age, but in our positions, we don't have any dependents, people depending on us other than ourselves. We can afford to take those risks, which means we can afford to take the losses.
Yes, high risk, high reward sort of situation we're in here.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. Once you're at that point, you don't want to be taking unnecessary risks, as you say, because we are fortunate at that point to be taking more risks from it, because we could get the better returns out of it. And if it doesn't work, okay, it doesn't work, move on to the next thing. Yeah,
you can start again.
Yeah.
Can't you? And there's various different avenues you can go down. I think the most profitable in the short term, which will have an effect as well in the long term, is business. Is starting your own business. And they've so Patrick Bet-Davis describes this very well. Is everybody's different. You've got people that are very risk averse. You've got people that are like myself and yourself. I'm happy to take the risk in order to hopefully at some point get to that level that we want to get to. And so you've got entrepreneurs, which so I think the definition of an entrepreneur is they will risk capital in the hope of making a profit. Or you got intrapreneurs, which are people that say, for example, they will work in a business and they will say like a Fortune 500 company or something like that. They go work for someone like that, and they'll invest in the stocks in their own business. So that they'll generate cash flow from the dividends that way, but they'll also work up through that business rather than going to create their own business and taking massive risks when you start a business. Because I think I can't remember the exact figure, but I think it's about 70 to 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. So it's only 20 to 30% of the businesses that get over that 5-year period, which is a massive risk, especially for the older generation, to have to start again if that it does fail. But if you're working for one of these big companies, then you can. Who was the chap who worked? He worked at Google, and then he became the CEO. Started as a programmer or whatever like that. That's a perfect example of an entrepreneur, because he worked up through Google to the point where he's now the head. And he would, who knows? You can't really 100% say, but he'll be making silly amounts of money doing that. And for some people, the better avenue is to work up through an already established business, in that level, rather than to start your own. But my point being is that any real type of business, whatever it is, you can usually scale it a lot quicker, and you're going to get the instant cash flow from it, which can then afford you the ability to put into investments. Now, we never know where to start. It depends on what your skills are and what your experiences are. They do always say is, when you're starting a business, is to start with something or with the capabilities or the equipment or area you already have. For example, say you are let's say, well, bamboo is from China, isn't it? So say you're a bamboo farmer, and there's no point going over to car sales or something like that if your experience is in bamboo. You can you've got all the skills, you've grown up around it, etc. The ins and the outs of that business. Well, try and start something like that, or something that has a similar type of concept. Or for example, I don't know, let's go to the complete other end of the spectrum. Say you're an astronaut, or you're skilled in that level of mathematics and engineering, all that types of things. Go to the moon. So then, so you've got the two possible avenues, and there's a spectrum. There's a middle point as well. But in terms of, say, the bamboo, it's all about the volume. That's a volume game. You can grow that quite easily. Many people can do it. So it's all about selling it for the, really doing it for the cheapest price you can, but building up the volume to a point where you're getting quite a lot of cash flow through the volume that you're selling. But then if we flip it to the meteor, or a non-earth mineral, they're very rare, aren't they? So there's not as much of that around, which means supply and demand, simple supply and demand, is that you can ask a higher price, because they're much rarer than on the flip side, say bamboo is, you can sell less, but you sell it for a much higher price. So you've got the two, again, like say Ferrari or Renault. Do you know what I mean? Ferrari don't sell anywhere near as many cars as Renault do, but the value of the Ferrari is obviously much higher, which means the profit margins per unit will probably be higher. However, I don't know these figures; they're completely pulled out my arsehole here. But Renault is probably a more profitable company.
Because of the scale.
So their profit margins are less, but because of the scale that they can churn them out at, they generate more. They probably generate more income from that. So it's scarcity versus abundance and yield, effectively.
Like you say, get the choice between those. I think to your one as well about if you're going to be investing in something that you're already good at, or you already have the skill set of, I think about one way to go. The other one would be if you see there's a gap in the market in something, or if you feel the need, as it were, and then you'll just figure out what you need to figure out. Like if, I don't know, let's say you live in a place where it's really hard to get bananas, but you've got a contact, you've got a banana man, and he can get you all the bananas you want, and then you become the banana man there, and then all you got to do is set up, I need to get refrigerated unit, I need to get my storefront, I need to get employees, I need to work out logistics and supply chains and stuff. But beyond that, you're laughing because it'll pay for itself if you've found that high demand product that only you can provide
Mm-hmm.
or service, whatever it were.
Yeah. And that's how an entrepreneur can become an entrepreneur as well. So say they work for a company in America or something like that, whatever industry it is they're doing, and they go on holiday to Europe or wherever they're going, and they get there and they realise, hang on, this service or this product isn't really provided here, but you can still see the need for it, or the potential consumer demand because you've got that experience from where you're originally based. Then it gives you that opportunity to get into that market, which is a lot different these days because obviously you've got the freedom of information. There's so much more we can learn and grow. From the previous generation pretty much they had to either work in a company or go to the library or watch the news.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we don't really learn anything from the news.
No.
Other than to fear everything that's going on.
Absolutely. Well, everything's scary out there, Max. You've got to watch out for bees because bees can kill you.
Yeah. They're killers.
They're killer bees.
Exactly. But these days we've got the luxury of YouTube, the internet. You can pretty much learn anything you want just through Google and searching that way. So we do live in an age where the freedom of information gives us the ability to learn quicker, make mistakes quicker, grow more. And the flexibility to really do whatever we want. Like internet sales, it's not my side of things, but I've spoken to a lot of people about it because obviously I'm in a different type of business. However, with say like Amazon sellers, they've got the potential buying market of maybe not the whole population of Earth, but let's say 6 billion people have the ability to buy from Amazon. That means your customer base is absolutely massive. And if you tap into 1% of that, then
wild.
Like 70 million. Like that's a ridiculous amount of customers. Make £1 from those.
There you go.
But then again, it depends how you want to do it.
Yeah, and there's I think there was a graph I think from Grant Cardone about if you have if your target's 100 grand a year that you want to make, then he basically broke down just the formula of how you're going to do it in regards to ratios. So if it's 100 grand you want a year, then you've either got to get 100 people to spend 1,000 on you throughout the year. You get 1,000 people spend 100 on you. Yeah. You get 10,000 people spending 10 or whatever the combination is, but you don't have to. It's to your point. It's that gradation of scale. Is like you can either go for something that, it's inexpensive, and so a lot of people will buy it, or it's expensive, so it's a better, more economical use of your time, but a smaller amount of people will buy it that way. So it was just fascinating just to see that sort of written out, and you're like, oh yeah, so it doesn't have to be just this way or that way. It can be somewhere in the middle. It can be whatever combination of that you want. And
what a great, because going back to the car point, so it could have changed now, but I believe Fiat own Ferrari.
That's fucking weird, isn't it?
So it's like that business themselves has the ability to do both, which is insane. If you can get if you can get to that level where you're doing the high demand, low profit margins, then obviously you've got that coupled with the low demand, high profit margins. Then you've got like the synergy of them both.
Yeah, fascinating.
So you've got high cash flow here, and then you've got the sort of high yield turnover here.
Yeah.
And if you can do both, then you are laughing. But obviously they are much older companies.
Well, that's like the it wasn't until years ago when one of the biggest gifts I got from the estate agency was just the sheer variety of people we meet.
Yeah.
I met this one lady who worked for Unilever.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of them at all. I hadn't heard of them at all before meeting her.
They own like everything. I
looked them up. They own everything. Yeah. Like you go to a supermarket, Unilever owns it. But I didn't really
have like their shower gels or anything like that.
But I didn't. Well, I thought what's genius about it is that they own like Clover, the butter, and then like Lurpak.
Or they own both, do they?
Yeah, or they'll own like L'Oreal and then Pantene. It's just like the shit that is put on the market in a subliminal way to be competitors. They own both.
They own both.
So by picking one and making people like, choose between them. They still own it. I was like, this is fucking genius.
And effectively, they can do the typical celebrity social media thing where they have a feud.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. The fake celebrity feuds are fantastic. Like whether it's
to the point where now, when you know it, you can identify it quite easily. But
the obvious ones are the boxing or the UFC ones.
Yeah.
The obvious ones, they are brilliant because it gets everyone involved, and these guys are fucking good actors.
And you know that's why they have the weigh-ins at the beginning.
100%.
They know it's going to be that standoff to build up the hype.
Yeah, and people are more likely to watch it because if they see there's all this shit going beforehand, people are going to pay to watch the full fight. It's brilliant. It's fantastic. It's so good. But you have it with just...
It's fantastic marketing.
The marketing's brilliant. But you have the same sort of shit with musicians as well. Once you get to a certain level, they can have like you could have like Machine Gun Kelly and Eminem's beef.
Yeah,
true or otherwise, ones, it's irrelevant. But the fact there's like more eyeballs turned on both of them, particularly when they start doing raps about the other person. Again, genius, absolutely brilliant, and they are good. So if you have the fake thing, but with like Fiat, but it's the same thing with oh god damn it, it's Volkswagen owns like 7 other cars.
Lamborghini,
BMW, Audi, Mini now, and you're just like, you just keep fucking going.
They own BMW now?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Volkswagen owns BMW. Yeah.
Oh Jesus, because I know BMW own Mini, and obviously Mercedes owns Smart.
Volkswagen owns Mercedes.
Do they?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Volkswagen have taken over.
It's the Nazis, mate. They make hey, I turned up.
They never left.
I turned up on one. They make good cars.
Yeah.
The Germans make good cars. So do the Japanese.
They do, yeah. The old Hondas.
Hondas are the
Nissans.
Nissans and the Hyundai i10s. That's a nice car.
Well, I'm pretty sure you'll find Hyundai is Korean.
Is it? Oh, fair play. I will explain the tech in the inside. Still good cars. Still really good cars.
Yeah, that other one you were talking about, the new i10,
that's a nice car.
It's like the first car they've ever built. I've been like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll drive a Hyundai, you know.
Well, we got one when we went to Portugal years ago, just as like a rental. I was like, this is nice.
Really?
This is real nice. Because it's just smooth. And like my mates who are mechanics, they're like, get a German car or get like a Japanese car. They just ain't gonna break. And then obviously South Korea, just when they make anything, they do a bloody good job on it.
Well, Samsung's Korean, isn't it?
Yeah, Samsung's I think that's still the number one phone in the world.
It is, yes. They will have.
Interesting.
People believe that it's Apple.
Nah, Apple's third, I think.
Really? What? Over?
It's either Huawei or OnePlus, which is second.
Because I know there's OnePlus the Indian one.
I thought that was South Korean as well.
I could be wrong. I don't know, but I know there's outside of America, the majority of people have Samsung, don't they?
Yeah, they have an Android phone. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the operating system is either Android or Apple, isn't it? They don't.
Yeah, there's nothing else. Yeah.
Operating system. I mean, Huawei might have something slightly different.
It's Android in itself, but the thing about Huawei is the whole government ties.
Yes.
Like people are just like very skeptical or they're very wary of it.
Of the CCP.
Yeah, rest in peace. Wait, no, what? Yeah, they're just wary of the fact that it's when they've reverse engineered it, they found all these backdoors in it, and you're like, okay,
so they can access all your data.
Yeah.
But moving on to that, have you heard recently the BRICS nations, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, I believe.
All right.
They have, or they're starting to negotiate deals to come off the petrodollar.
Yes, I did hear that.
Which is worrying for the West, because we've most of, especially America's dominance, has been based on their effectively complete control over the oil market, and now they are. They've already started. Russia have already started, trading in oil in the Chinese yuan, and it would be interesting to see what the effect of that is going to happen, because we've never had in our lives, even in our parents' lives, we've never had any other, superpower be in control. And the worrying thing is that when that transition of power happens, which it would appear is going on, but the West, especially America, they're not going to give that up easily.
Oh, definitely not. Absolutely not.
Which we all know how that starts. We don't know how it ends. But it could be a WW3 on the horizon.
And over fucking resources.
It's madness, isn't it? All over oil.
Where would that leave us?
Well, we are technically the West, aren't we? So we're based really under the control of the United States.
So it'd be us and Western Europe.
It'd be us, Europe, and, well, effectively, we are in trouble. Because you've got Russia, China, a lot of South America, Brazil, which is a massive country. If you got South Africa, a lot of all the other countries, they are, well, there's a lot more of them than there are of us. And they're probably far more organised. They're probably less worried about gender and fighting each other internally. Yep. Like we are in our countries. We could be in trouble there. Especially with, it's different for America because their army is massive. I think their army is, or at least their combined spending, or their spending on military is the same as the next 9 countries combined in the world. So hopefully we'll be all right. But depends if they start dropping nukes, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, that's a... Yeah, hopefully it's not going to come to that. With the spending, they may spend the most of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're the best equipped, because it's very easy, because the military-industrial complex, it's very easy for that money to be spent so much purely because the nepotism encourages them to invest in these countries. Yeah. So their spending on money could be making bullets, it could be investing in companies. So it may not be materially anything. Yeah. But the money's still going to go.
And that, speaking on nepotism in the army, I didn't realise how common that was. We have like army families effectively where they all just
generational,
generation go from, sons, grandsons, they all go into the army.
Which in a way is kind of cool, but equally it could be that they end up getting positions of authority through other means other than merit.
Yeah, 100%. But then you could also lay it back to what we spoke about in the previous podcast is the generations growing up with the knowledge from a young age.
True.
So they may have more knowledge.
So it'll stay in it, yeah.
Exactly. So they might not necessarily know any different. So they've got the experience from a young age. That whereas a lot of people may have only gone into the army at say 18, but these guys have been around it from birth or from inception.
Yeah, it would have been the family tradition or the honour system as they were going through it.
But it's more worrying in the UK because I think our army is something down to like 100,000.
It's not really surprising, really, because I've got two of my mates are in the army, and they're like it's the best trained, worst equipped on the planet.
Really,
that's how they put it. Like they for my best mate, who's a infantry sergeant, he's been there like 10 years now, and he's gone like loads of training exercises in different countries and worked with loads of other countries. Like, look, he's like the Israelis are great, the Australians are great, Americans are rubbish, but they've got all of this like fancy equipment. Yeah. And he was like, we're way better. We kick the shit out of them all the time, and it was just fascinating just to see it.
But you haven't got the equipment.
The UK hasn't got the equipment.
So then, effectively, all they would need then, if they are at that level already, is the investment.
Pretty much, but I just don't think it's because the size that we are. We don't really, from the sounds of it, we don't really get the investment unless it's like super high end. So it's like the SAS or like Trident, like that kind of shit is where the money goes. Whereas like a basic standing army, I don't think they really care. Like they'll be like, yeah, we're gonna have a presence, but we're gonna do the bare minimum kind of thing.
Well, I think Max touched on it in one of the podcasts we had previously. Is World War III, if it does transpire, I think it's less likely to be infantry.
Yeah,
It's
be
more
a
likely to
fucking
be
drone.
Yeah, the drones coming across, dropping a couple of bombs on the areas that are going to have the most impact.
Well, yeah, I mean, an infantry, to take out an infantryman, you just need another infantryman.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take out a drone, it's going to be drone warfare fighting each other.
Exactly.
Because they're going to be so fast, a fighter pilot can't keep up with a drone. I would imagine. I'd happily be wrong. I'd happy to be wrong about that. I'd like for them to be, but I would imagine
that jet's got to be quicker.
I don't know, maybe. But yeah, how do you take a drone out of the sky? It's going to be another drone or a fighter pilot. So it's going to be RAF more than anything else. The Air Force is what we'd have to lean on more than anything else.
And the Navy.
Yeah, Navy for invasion. Yeah. So it's the Air Force and Navy we're going to need more than anything. Can you imagine if they reopened the bunkers in Dover?
Yeah, because they've still got loads of them there, haven't they?
Well, I had a guy I used to work with. His mate used to just find these abandoned places and go explore them. And he went with him.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
He showed me some of the videos. It's nuts because some of the complexes are enormous. Like they're not. It's not just like a bunker with a viewing slit. It's like it's a full on, self-contained like town. And he said we got in. Probably shouldn't have, but he said he got into one of them, and they were there for like 4 hours just walking around. Yeah. But like pitch black, so they've got all these torches on and shit. And he said it just keeps on going and going and going, like it doesn't end, kind of thing. You're like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, the tunnel systems. Well, it's even like in London.
Yes.
Apparently
Yeah.
Loads of tunnel systems around London.
Makes sense.
Which is pretty madness.
Yeah, there's gonna be one. There must be one under Downing Street. There has to be.
Got to be, yeah.
Whether it's just a bunker underneath or a tunnel that takes you to like somewhere else. There's this city, I can't remember what it's called, but there was they found it like 20 years ago in like the basement of some house, but it's a city in Turkey.
Yes,
underground.
I did hear about this. Yeah,
they
were doing an extension or something like that, and then they knocked through. Didn't they?
Yeah, if no one knows what this is, you need to look up an image of it because it's crazy. The network they found is a fucking like a full-on city just under Turkey. I can't remember where the city is in Turkey, but it's fucking enormous.
And they had all like loads of different vent holes, didn't they?
Vent holes. They had areas for pens for animals. They had water at the bottom. They had all this. Yeah, it was crazy.
What, so they tapped into like the natural aqueducts and that?
Yeah.
That is mad.
Fascinating. And then they just locked it up and just forgot about it.
Or there was an invasion or something like that.
Oh, God.
Or they moved out and fought.
With bubbles. So speaking of tunnels, do you know Thames Tower right by the station?
Yep.
When they were, you've got those like steps going down like towards here. Yeah.
Because they used to be a club under there, didn't they? I went there once when I was very young, but then it closed down.
Oh, man. Because that would have been cool. But when, so they dug up those areas like a couple of times now. So they're digging it up now. When they put that tower in, they had to dig it out to put the foundations in, and then they put the steps in. I don't know what they're doing now. It must be the same sort of shit for the other building they're doing.
Yeah.
But I remember because of where the station is, like right at the top, if you go up all those flights of stairs, the station, stand and look down, you could see into it what they were doing when they dug it all out.
Yeah.
And they dug it out, and it showed a tube platform.
Really?
There was an underground tube platform under there.
Well, in Reading, or
yeah. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Because I could tell from the yellow line, there was train tracks. There was all of this old like 80s murals and shit on the wall. And I was like, what the hell is this? And then, but they obviously covered it all up, put the steps in. I didn't think about it again until they're redoing it again now, like a year ago is where they started. And they repurposed the whole thing now. But then I watched them like fill it in with concrete, and I was like, fuck, because that'd be so interesting just to know what that was.
It's better walk around it and have a look.
Yeah, I was like, that's just so cool. Because I remember there being an underground club like adjacent to, it must be like where you've got the underground station car park, like across from that.
That's the club I was talking about. Yeah, I went to that. Yeah,
it must be like just a few walls through you get to it.
Yeah, it was just like it just looked like a random like doorway basically, and you get to the doorway and then it was just like steps down.
Yeah, all the way down
outside Thames Tower.
Yeah, it was a can't remember what that building was previously, but it was like right outside the old station. It basically just looked like a hut.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you would just like go in and just spiral down, as it were.
But yeah, going back to the oil business, it would be crazy to see what effect that's going to have in the West and whether we need to get out. Do we need to get out?
Yeah, what would that look like? Because as you're saying about the difference of superpowers, you've had a Western superpower, which for the most part is pretty central when it comes to politics. Whereas if we go Russia, China, that's
1984 type shit.
That's dictatorship masquerading as extreme left ideology. So that's censorship. That's that's blatant censorship. That's dictatorial control. That's oppression. That's ratting on your neighbours. That's you can't talk bad about the government kind of shit. So that is way worse. Obviously, right now is not perfect, but that's worse. Way worse.
Well, I've had this conversation over and over and over again with various people over the years. Is although our form of governance, in terms of free enterprise, there's drawbacks and pitfalls to it. However, it tends to be the only system that lasts the longest. Now, no system is going to be forever, perpetual, in terms of it ongoing. Throughout the years, Greece, Rome, all of these empires have fallen. So there's going to come a point where it's going to happen. However, it tends to be with communism, and at least socialism, which is effectively communism, is they last the shortest period. A bit like, do you know about the Khmer Rouge?
No.
Over in Cambodia. So that, so I believe previously, I don't know too much about it, but it was like a free enterprise economic system, and then they went into like a communist dictatorship, or like they were overthrown by the army, and then became a communist dictatorship. And within like 5 years, they weren't growing enough food to support the citizens, etc., and then effectively the armies were just going around and just massacring everyone.
Whoa.
Yeah, and because they couldn't effectively look after them or provide for them, they had to, or whether they had to, or whether they just chose to, instead of putting those things in place in order to provide for everyone, just went around just killing them all.
Wow.
It was massive. We don't hear too much about it over here, but it was a huge massacre, and it wasn't too long ago. It was like within the last 50 years. So
the army took over, so their solution, as opposed to let people starve to death, was just kill them all. Jesus.
And obviously they did it. It was all shrouded as well, in terms of these people were against us, so we must get rid of them type of thing, rather than, look, we fucked up big time here. And that's the point of the economic system and free enterprise that we live in. It forces people to level up and to it gives people the freedom in order to do what is required to make a profit to be able to provide for their families. Whereas communism is effectively the state rules everything, and the everybody else is effectively peasants, and they've got to do what they're told, and it's never really, because there's no competition, there's no effectively growth. But, without the competition, you lose the ability for people to compete and provide different services, different things to help bounce off each other. For example, my business, I have a lot of work done to the van, so I pay a lot of money to mechanics. I pay a lot of money to manufacturers to manufacture various different products. I have various different chemicals or whatever that I use. So there is a good 25-30 businesses that my business ends up funding as well. It's the economic rollover. But of course, with those systems, is that tends to all be lost. And then, of course, when things aren't being produced and people aren't being paid, then they think, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to avoid doing that. What's the point? There's no benefit to me doing it. It all gets effectively, that gets massacred, the business side of things, which has a massive knock-on effect in the basics, simple basics of life, is farming and providing the basic necessities for the population. So it's crazy, and that's the worry I have is socialism is especially in our country is pushed onto us as like a really good thing, and the basic concept of it is, I think we can all agree, is ideal. It's great. It sounds brilliant. It's a brilliant little sales pitch. However, in practice, it doesn't really tend to come to fruition because we need. I don't know if necessarily we need. It's human nature as competition, but we need something to strive towards, to work towards, to help provide for our families, etc. Whether it goes back to the hunter and gatherer days where we had to go out and get it ourselves and do all those bits. But whereas if you're dependent on the state, you've got no control over your own life and providing for yourself and your family. You're basically dictated to by the government, and if they one day can't provide for you, then everybody's in the shit basically. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that respect.
Yeah, the good points of socialism is you want free healthcare. You want if your kitchen's on fire, you want to be able to pick up the phone and the fire brigade will turn up. The fire police will turn up. Yeah. You want there to be a reliable and effective police force there. So that's the good parts of socialism. That you want to be part of it.
And I think maybe I would even still argue at the current level we are at, as much as especially a lot of people in the UK, they sort of poo-poo it, is we've got a very good system of free enterprise / socialism in terms of, for example, the welfare system. You can argue, when I was a lot younger, the welfare system confused me. I was like, how does this work? You've got loads of people that just decide not to work effectively because they know they can get money from the state. But my father had a very good argument for it. He said, look, no matter what system you have, there's going to be 10% of people that take the piss. There's going to be that grey area where there's always going to be people that are going to try and take advantage of the system. But there are genuinely, say the other 90% that either physically can't work.
Yep.
They don't have the capabilities for whatever reason not to do it. And as a society, the people like you and I that can either have, we have the ability to do that. It's really dependent on us and reliant on us because we are fortunate enough to have those abilities to do that, to then provide those services and that ability for the people that can't. Whereas I don't know the ins and the outs too much of America or even Canada, but I know their welfare state is a lot different over there. Whereas here, if it's the councils and the government's responsibility, if you don't have a home, for them to provide one for you. Whereas a lot of the time in the States and stuff like that, they don't have that. Don't have that type of social housing concept. And there was a place in Canada when I went to Vancouver, and they effectively had this mental hospital for people that had serious mental illnesses, and effectively they lost funding from either whoever was the state or the private enterprise that was funding them, and one day they just kicked them all out on the streets, to the point where there's like this strip which I drove through, and they're all basically, there's just like hundreds people just like living on the streets. And that's obviously it's an area that you're known to stay away, but to the point where the majority they can't really do anything for whatever reason, and then they end up the drug dealers get in, and then they end up, everybody's on drugs around there and stuff like that, to the point where like you have a guy with a wheelbarrow just full of drugs, just basically going down the road selling it all. And it's very extreme. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think we in the UK are fortunate that we've got that capability, whereas for some they're not that fortunate.
Are you familiar with Skid Row in Los Angeles?
No.
So Skid Row is a place that is it's called so because it's just incredibly destitute. It's basically a homeless town. So what happened in during the Reagan administration, legislation and bills got passed that basically shut down lots of mental institutions, and as a result they kicked all of these mentally ill people out onto the street, who then, to deal with it themselves, either they just got scooped up into then put into actual prison, or they just turned to drugs and just stayed homeless. And it's largely happened in California. So you've got these two hotspots now, one which is Skid Row in Los Angeles, which is a section.
Is that what they've got, like the tent cities?
It's the city of tents, yeah. And then the other one is basically pretty much all of San Francisco now. So in LA, for Skid Row one, it started off as like, just like a street or something, but it's now, I think it's about half the size of Reading.
Wow.
Of just homeless people. And there's now laws in place that if someone puts up a tent, that is now their property, wherever that is, and it is illegal to move them. So whether that tent is outside someone's drive, if that's in front of a shop, if that's in the middle of the street, police cannot touch it, because that is now, in the name of compassion and understanding, that is now a homeless person or the unhoused. That's their property.
Well, they do have a similar thing in the UK. So I remember like Festival, Reading Festival, quite a famous festival, even worldwide. We're lucky enough to have it right on our doorstep.
Now you can walk there, yeah.
Is because you've paid for that pitch, if you put your tent up, that is effectively your home. If the police want to come into your tent, they have to have a warrant.
Fascinating.
Because it's your home effectively. So they have to have a warrant to obviously enter the premises.
Interesting.
Which, why the police would want a warrant to come into your tent at a festival?
Yeah, where you can just...
Who would know?
You'd hoover up everyone. So it's exactly, like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the place where everyone goes.
Yeah, you'd have to arrest 80,000 people.
And it would kill the festival.
Yeah, they'd be like, yeah, it's not worth doing it.
Just leave them.
But yeah, San Francisco is like that as well. But San Francisco, like, the homelessness is so nuts. And just like the ignoring and the lack of treatment for people who are mentally ill, that there's so many homeless people that there's an app created to mark out where the human shit is.
Oh, you're serious?
So people can look on the app wherever they're going to go and be like, oh, there's a lot of shit over there. I'm not going there, I'm going this way or something.
But then, that has a massive effect on the businesses around there, because effectively they have to have to move out and close down, don't they? Because
pretty much because no one's going to go there.
Because people are going to avoid the
or you've got because of San Francisco, like it's naturally beautiful, the Golden Gate Bridge and like Alcatraz and all that shit. And its spots of natural beauty are still incredible, but you've got like multi-million-dollar houses, and then there's just piles of human shit outside the front gates. Really?
Well, and the people still living there, or they've obviously just abandoned them?
It's a combination, I would imagine. Crazy.
It's a crazy old world out there, but we'll see. It'd be interesting to see over the next couple of months what goes on.
Well, I had a policeman was serving yesterday. He said just some people are just daft. Because he did 8 years on the front lines, and now he's in charge of close protection security. So for like Theresa May, Boris, other people in Westminster, and he was just like telling me about them. I was like, this is crazy. He said, yeah, it's a lot less exciting than it sounds, but it's just like there's very rarely anything dangerous. It's just loads of lunatics turning up saying that they know him. Yeah. And he's like, you just got to be like, no, you don't.
Sorry, who are you?
Yeah, you don't
know.
We
went to school together.
Fuck off.
Yeah. We met in that pub one time.
Yeah, he's like, no. Or he said quite a lot of them claim they're related to him. And he's like, no, you're not. It's just like, piss off.
Yeah. Even if you are, they don't want to see you.
Yeah.
So
If they want to see you, I know about it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they would have told me.
Mm. Yeah, people are daft. That was a very good statement. Some people are daft.
Yeah, well, strong statement. I like that one.
Mm.
But it's as I said, it'd be slightly anxious to see what's going to happen
Yeah.
in the next couple of years. And again, going back to the whole Russia thing and the Russia and Ukraine debacle.
Mm.
You know, we're already funding that war as such. Obviously, I know Putin calls it a special operation,
Mm.
but only time will tell. See what happens.
Yeah, and that's such a nuanced one as well, because it absolutely shouldn't be happening.
Mm-hmm.
But who's at fault? God knows.
So I was reading the other day that there's especially in like Crimea and stuff like that, there was an agreement between Russia and the people in Crimea, even though it's part of Ukraine, that they wanted to be part of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that never gets really spoken about.
Yeah.
In especially the Western media,
Mm-hmm.
is that they're all saying that, well, a lot of because there was that conflict in Crimea that they want to be part of Russia, it was the Ukrainian government were effectively going in there with the military and basically killing off the people that wanted to be part of Russia. And obviously Putin saw there as, well, they're my citizens.
And you're killing my citizens.
And you're killing mine. So
Yeah.
I need to protect them.
Yeah.
Hence why I'm coming into these areas
Mm-hmm.
to back them up effectively.
Yeah,
you never-
and you have that mix of Ukraine is such a melting pot of different types of people. You've got people who want to be part of the West. You've got people who want to be part of Russia. People who want to be fascists. It's a whole mix. So, yeah, absolutely. The war and the killing should not be happening. But then again, you've got it's just such a complex issue
Mhm.
in regards to how it came to that in the first place. Because if there's going to be any blame apportioned, everyone is at fault. Like
Yeah.
everyone is at fault.
Mm. And then again, we don't know politics. We only know about what we.
Oh, we're a bunch of fucking idiots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know what we're talking about, but
Haven't got a clue.
we can only understand from what we see and understand. But it does seem like there's a lot of information there that's not being portrayed correctly
Mm-hmm.
to the rest of us.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's still going on. Was it over a year now?
Yeah. So it was February last year. February, March.
About then, yeah.
Yeah. So 14 months, something like that. Which in the term of wars is not very long, but we were not considering this to be a war. This was going to be like a skirmish or something. But
And it did amaze me that our government started putting on tariffs to the Russians on the oil that we buy from them. To me, that didn't really make sense. You're saying, like, right, so we're going to make it more difficult for you to sell us your product. Well, that's only going to have one effect, isn't it?
It's going to make our prices go up.
Exactly.
That's right,
Yeah. Russia are still going to be making their money on it, aren't they? So
Yeah, and also they're like England. You're like, okay, I've got the rest of the world.
that's effectively, yeah. But it's like one of my customers coming to me and saying, right, I want to make it more difficult for you to supply me with what I need. And there's only one thing you can do. Okay, that's fine. I can do it for you. But it's going to cost you more.
Yeah,
Brilliant. We'll do that.
yeah.
We'll pay you more money for the same product. It's
Bizarre. So stupid.
very confusing. And again, I'm sure there's lots of information in there that we're missing or not being provided. But who knows?
Definitely. There's big sections of it that are going to be blank that we are not going to be informed about, or even that we're ever going to be told about until long after the fact.
But again, all we can do is see what's in front of our faces, deal with what we got, work with what we got.
And above all, stay positive as well, because the fact that we are able to discuss about it, that we are allowed to speak, that's nothing but a positive.
The freedom of speech and expression is what's needed. Let's just hope it doesn't go back to COVID times.
Doubt it. We've got other things to worry about.
But do you remember during COVID it really made me think about how, so, this is obviously the extreme side of things, but you know how people question, they're like, so how did Germany allow themselves to fall to the Nazis? And it was over time. They put certain different things in place, and then they had the massive overprinting of money, didn't they, which crashed the economy. And that's ultimately what allowed Hitler, the nutter, who did actually run for government. He was
voted in, yeah.
But a few years prior, he ran for government, and it basically they all just like laughed him off because they were like, "No, you're a nutcase. Like, we want nothing to do with you." And then when the currency collapsed effectively, it gave him the perfect in to be like, "Look, this is what your government has done to you. Blah 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 blah. We're sort of taking over, and we're gonna save you," type thing.
Well, Hitler also burned the Reichstag, so he burned the houses of government. And then was like, look what your government's done, I can fix this. Even though he's the one that burned it.
Like a false flag event.
He false flagged it. Same thing with Rome. Was it Caesar? Someone burned an aspect of Rome on purpose. Oh, Nero, that was it. In
order to get
and then he was like,
the public's
he said,
support.
look, I can fix this. Even though he's the one that fucked up in the first place.
But my point of moving on to that, it was you saw during COVID the fear that was placed upon everybody through the media of what could happen, to the point where I was watching like the BBC and news channels and stuff like that, and normal sane people that knew the figures knew it was like 0.1% of people were dying of this disease.
Less than that.
There are people going around saying like, well, anybody who doesn't get the vaccine is like a despicable human being. They should lose their jobs. They should lose their freedom. They should lose everything. Blah blah blah. And you think, wow, this is supposed to be like, we're supposed to be a free country here. How are they advocating this type of talk on the news, on like the nationwide news? And you think a lot of people lost their minds over this and completely went into fear and recluse mode, attack mode, effectively. And it's and you can see now how quickly things can turn when people are subjected to fear.
A lot of people are walking around at a certain level of anxiety because they're mentally very weak. So it didn't take much to push them over the edge. There's a lot of people that were, there's probably about 40% of the population are probably like that.
Which, going back to the school chat we had previously, is that it's not really, or it is perpetuated through the school system, isn't it? It's like, if you do what you're told, put your hand up when you want to go to the toilet, I'll tell you what you can and can't do. If you mess about, then we'll kick you out. Blah 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 blah. Yeah,
government is the be all and end all, and there's that part of it, and also there's a lot of, when people get angry or they get worked up or they get upset about something, majority of the time, whatever they vent or their frustration on is not the reason that they're angry or upset. That's usually just the outlet. It's projected onto something. And a lot of that can be mitigated by, or a lot of that is a result of unmatched physical need. So people need to use their bodies. They need to exercise in some form or another. And a lot of that is unmatched. Combine that with poor diet, poor sleep, excess caffeine intake, excess sugar intake, not enough protein, not enough sunlight, not enough love, not enough hugs, not enough emotional fulfillment, not enough friendship, too much TV, all that together. It's when you combine all of the trappings and the tribulations of what it is to be a modern human, it's just like, you should be like, it's remarkable that there's not enough people snapping, or there's not more people snapping.
But it goes back to, I was thinking the other day, so, depression, there's massively high mental health issues and mental stress and depression in, I can only speak from our country. But it got me thinking is that depression, it really is, it's a luxury for those that can afford it. And my point being is,
I want to push back against that, but carry on.
We'll have an open debate on this one.
Go on.
It was just a concept I was thinking of. Is say you're dead broke and you've got to feed your family. Now, I'm sure that's quite depressing, but you don't really have the ability, if you need to provide for people, to sit there and wallow in your own self-pity. You've got to just get up, get on with it, and provide. See what I mean?
From that perspective, yes. I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. If you would say as a blanket expression, anyone who's depressed is very luxury about it. I don't think you can quite say that. I think
there is an element there of like, there is some people that, you know, mentally for whatever reason aren't capable, which can lead them to depression. I know there's an element there, but there's a lot in society where people, as you say, aren't exercising properly. So there's a massive connection between not exercising and depression.
Yes.
Not having any goals or any type of purpose or fulfillment in your life, which is obviously going to lead you down the depressed route. The unhealthy eating, you know, the garbage we feed ourselves these days, which effectively our body is a chemical reactor, isn't it? Like the emotions you feel and project are predominantly based on the chemicals you put into your body and the chemical reaction it's going to have. So if you're filling yourself up with shit, you're going to have a bad experience.
Yeah, so from that perspective, for sure. I'm agreeing with you. I think that there is where there's been more of a push to recognise mental health disorders or just mental health in general has opened the door for, because it's something that cannot be seen and is a qualitative measure, not a quantitative measure. It's opened the door for it to be very easily abused, and it absolutely 100% has been abused as a movement, like any movement. But I mean, yeah, it depends what it is. If it's like, oh, you know, I feel a bit sad today, so I'm going to be depressed and be signed off for 6 weeks, ignoring the fact that all you eat is, you know, fucking donuts, and you just binge watch Netflix and don't get out at all. There's like no fucking shit, you're depressed. Versus someone who has been, you know, sexually abused from a young age, is then, you know, struggles, has bad days when they can't get out of bed because the trauma's hitting them. There's obviously
there's that element.
There's a spectrum. But I think you're absolutely right that there is for the most part, you're absolutely right that there is it's a luxury to be able to be, in quotes, depressed. Whereas, and whether that's a case of you're just being self-pitying, or it's just enforced narcissism, or it just comes from a place of ignorance, where it's like, I don't know that what I'm eating is bad for me. I don't know that I'm not exercising enough. I don't know that I'm not seeing enough sunlight. Maybe it comes from different places.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's from my experience, but I think especially the diet type of thing, I think you've got to be ignorant, completely, willfully ignorant, to believe that it's not having an effect. You know, we all know you got to have your 5 a day. We all know you got to eat healthily and not eat junk food. I think even from schooling days and stuff like that, that was good old Jamie Oliver when he got rid of all the vending machines and stuff like that. You know, he don't get me wrong, I hated the guy at the time because
I want my sweets.
Exactly, I couldn't go to the vending machine and get my Cokes and
that was such a treat.
my crisps and stuff like that. But
you can now buy it yourself now.
Exactly, I can do whatever I like now. But you know, his idea and the concept of where he came from was 100% right. And do you remember like school dinners and stuff like that? Used to have when we were younger. They were terrible.
They were fantastic.
Oh, they were great.
Just chicken and chips and beans. Oh,
yeah. It was beautiful.
Great, I love that shit.
But the effect he had was, you know, was massively positive. Even though, as I said, as a kid, you think he's a cock for
depriving you of that.
He said depriving me of the shit that I want to eat.
Yeah.
And the enjoyment I got from it.
There's everything in moderation, including moderation, which is where whenever you and I see each other, we'll have our death cans. I don't drink them besides that.
No.
Someone was asking me the other day, they were like, how often do you have chocolate? And I was like, had to genuinely think about it. I was like, I couldn't tell you the last time I had chocolate. And they were like, oh, I have it every day. And I was like,
Really?
how?
Yeah,
I was like, how do you eat chocolate every day?
Yeah.
Like, if I had a Twix every day, that hurts. I was hungry yesterday morning, and I stupidly got a fucking Starbucks like Easter little chocolate crispy brownie thing. They had 2 mini eggs on top. 2 bites in, I thought I was gonna die. I was like, this was a mistake. Like, this was a really bad decision.
Well, so I did it for about 6 months, where I thought, right, I'm gonna cut out sugar, like processed sugar, and try and see what effect it had. And the effect what I learned is I was a lot less tired. I had far more energy, and then it got to a point where I was like quite far down, 6 months in or whatever, and I thought, I'll give it a go. And I think I had 2 chocolate bars or something like that, and I had a massive spike because I'd been avoiding it for so long.
Yeah,
had a massive spike, and then just a big old crash. Like, I had a spike for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and for the next like few hours, it was depressing, shall we say?
Whenever I do have chocolate, I can't have milk. It has to be it has to be dark now. Otherwise, it's just
dark
horrible.
Chocolate's good, yeah. I like dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate, because it's so rich and there's so little sugar in it compared to like a Twix or something. I could eat quite a lot of it, and I'm like, okay, it's okay. Like, I get a nice amount of flavour, and I don't get the crash.
But it seems a bit unfair, really. They've taken cacao, which is supposed to be like a superfood, isn't it? Which is really good for the brain and the body and stuff like that, and then completely molested it into the chocolate.
Yeah, they pump it full of milk that you don't need because you're not a baby anymore, and loads of sugar and other additives because it's just gonna make you eat more of it, and it's gonna give it a longer shelf life.
Yeah. But I think we're quite lucky in that respect. I don't know about yourself, but even from a young age, like like squash, I just never really liked it. So like my brothers and sisters would drink squash. I just drink water.
There was a time when I was about 16 where I used to have a can of ginger beer a day. Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
I don't know the last time I had a ginger beer.
And it's the same for chocolate as well. Like, even when we were younger, like, I never really liked chocolate. For Christmas you get them like the boxes, the selection box or whatever. You can have like a flake of all like the Cadbury ones and stuff like that. I ended up never eating them and like just giving them to my brothers and sisters. And even for like Easter, you'd get like a load of Easter eggs. I wouldn't even end up. I might have one and be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, mine was always when we were kids. We had Easter. It was always Mum was always clever because she was like, let's see how long we can make these last, and we used to make them last till like July.
Yeah.
Like ages we'd have them for. Which I was like, this is brilliant. This is a great challenge to see how long you can make the Easter egg last for.
But it'd be interesting to see why that happens to certain people.
What?
Because my point was, even from a young age, even though I was unconscious of it, I was unconscious of how bad they were for you. I just didn't like it. It was just like, I don't really like it, so I'm not going to eat it.
It's just the natural proclivity you'd have, which is advantageous. Yeah, to not have that craving there. Oh yeah, you're right. I wonder what it is. Yeah,
and I feel quite lucky in that respect. Because again, as you say, you get some people that are like, they eat chocolate every day, all that type of stuff, and you think, wow, like, don't get me wrong, but I'm fairly healthy, but I don't eat the healthiest. But I've never been really like, other than the Def cans, that we go for every now and again. Yeah, there's not really anything that I even like sweets. Like, I don't really like sweets. I like a couple gummy sweets. Do you know what I mean? I could eat those, but it's not like last time I ate those was a month or so ago.
See, I've got a real savoury tooth.
Yeah, same.
Like, I fucking love crisps.
Oh mate, I could eat crisps all day.
All day, I love them. My absolute favourite is popcorn. Just
actual popcorn.
It's salted buttery popcorn. Oh, it's the best. I love that shit. And it's, considering what it is, like a tube of Pringles is, I think it's like 1,100 calories.
Serious?
It's absurd. Someone told me once, I was like, yeah, that's a lie. I looked on the tube and I was like, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Like 2 Pringles cans, that's you done for the day.
But then, like, it goes back to the thing we were talking about the chemical aspect. Is there's obviously certain chemicals and additives and stuff like that in there that are not natural, not naturally occurring. So, our bodies, even though, they're advanced systems, it's really over the last 30 years, maybe the last 50 years, that these types of chemicals have been introduced into our diets and stuff like that. So our bodies haven't had the time to evolve to really be able to deal with them, which would make sense as to, as we said before, as to why people get depressed and stuff like that, because there's effectively a chemical imbalance.
Yeah, we're pumping shit into us that shouldn't go into it.
And it was, we talk about quite often and we spoke about it briefly with Will on one of the previous podcasts, but how I use the word cuck. Do you know what I mean? How like there are a lot of men out there these days that are massively. Society's pushed it a lot as well, but the typical alpha male is a demon these days, isn't it? You're not allowed to be a typical alpha male. And I was reading the other day that apparently the pill which most women are on, obviously to stop getting pregnant, is it changes the chemical balance in their brains and their bodies to the point where they don't want alpha males. They would prefer a male who is more, say, like a beta male. That's just what they're more attracted to during that period while they're on this, on the pills, which tends to have a massive adverse effects. You could be with someone for 5 years or whatever like that, and then they come off the pill, so you get to a point where you're going to have kids or whatever like that, and then it switches back. So then the females are like, well, now I want the alpha male, and because they've either got with the beta male or over the years have forced their alpha male to become a beta, when they come off, it was basically saying that they lose attraction to their partner, which again, it kind of makes sense with the different chemicals and the imbalances and stuff like that it would have on the body and the brain.
So to quantify it for people, if let's say, a woman's been attracted to a Justin Bieber or a Harry Styles while they've been on birth controls, they want, say, a hairless guy who's quite feminine, a bit androgynous, but then they come off the pill and you now want a Henry Cavill, or you want a Jason Momoa, or you want a Jason Statham, who are like big, hairy guys,
alpha males.
Yeah, who are masculine in that respect. But it's interesting you bring up that point, is that you have the pill that is changing women's sexuality to then want more feminized men. With the male testosterone has been dropping 1% for the last 60 years. Our society naturally has pushed men to a less masculine,
more feminine
role, but a feminine proclivity in regards to the higher levels, to a lowering of testosterone rather. And so the whole you combine that with the fact that if women are ingesting the pill, then urinating that out, that goes into the water, that then follows the whole water cycle, which then goes back into us, and then we ingest it all over again. It is the supply and the demand for both of those things, with the feminized man and the women want for a feminized man whilst on the pill. Yeah.
No. So my point on that was I was reading that hormones are like the hardest thing to get out of the water system, water supply. When obviously they filter it and treat it and all that type of stuff, it's the hormones that tend to stay in. So you've got an increased level of estrogen that where everybody's ingesting. Fine for the females because that's
that's what they got anyway.
Exactly, they've got that. But then for the males,
big problem.
It's effectively neutering our testosterone levels.
Which, if you combine that with the push on vegetarian and veganism, a big substitute for some of the meat products is soy, namely tofu. Tofu has a lot of estrogen in it, but if you swap out every meat substitute you're gonna have with tofu, that's a shit ton of estrogen that should not be going in your body.
And isn't soy like corn? It's not actually a natural growing crop. It's like a man-made crop.
Yeah, exactly. We should not be ingesting corn or soy. The soy sauce is very nice.
Soy sauce is very good.
I always thought it was soya sauce, but it's soy sauce.
Yeah.
Because soya is something different.
That's a natural.
Yeah. So soya, you get a soya bean.
Is that where
soya milk? You get soya milk.
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Very strange, but again, that's probably why the West is going down.
It's
Maybe
on a
not going
trajectory.
down. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
No, it was definitely on the trajectory. 100% reversible though, because we're just identifying these problems, which is step one, and that's the step one on the journey to fixing it.
But then what always confuses me, and has a massive interest to me, is the massive attack that we tend to see and have on say the Jordan Petersons and the people out there that are genuinely trying to push for males to pull their finger out and start doing what they're supposed to be doing in society.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think about that?
The attack against him would be because he bucks against the narrative. So you have the way society is going at the minute. I think it's less an intentioned avenue. I think it's an incidental one, and people have just taken advantage of it. Be it governments, corporations, businesses. Be it the Canadian government being like, we want to mandate this because then that gives us control.
I think that has come in now, hasn't it?
I fucking hope not, but we'll have a look after.
Yeah.
Or if you have, I don't know, James Cameron, who made a vegan documentary because he has now the biggest European farm for beans or some shit. It's like, it's money, it's power and money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all
that it boils down to for everything. So yeah, the reason people will go after Jordan Peterson is for both the one or both of those reasons. It'd be power or money, because he's a threat to one or both of them.
But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens over the next 6 months to a year. To see what.
Yeah, the rest of our lifetime is going to be fascinating. But yes, for the short term, you're absolutely right.
It's going to change, massively from what our grandparents' generation had to work and deal with. Anyway, I think that's it.
That's it for today.
We're done for today.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for listening, as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Exactly. Like and subscribe. The most important metric you can do to push these videos out there.
Absolutely.
And take care, everyone.
We'll see you next time.